Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, whether you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here with us. During the month of May, we have started a new series called The Joys of Motherhood. So we're going to be sitting down with 4 different mothers, 4 different families, 4 different backgrounds, and we're going to be talking about motherhood and all that it entails. Tonight, I have my friend Jordan Ray. She's joining me. Thank you so much for being willing to sit down with me.
Happy to be here.
We're going to start off with a very broad, just generic question. Can you tell us about your family, your husband, how you met, how many children do you all have, what kind of family do you have?
Okay. Well, my husband, Josh, as you know, but we met at CAC actually. But we knew each other before we really got together. But in 2015, we got married, and this November it will be 5 years. And I had one little boy, McCade, and he had 2 sons, Logan and Jediah. And so on November 21st, 2015, we blended that family together. And now we have a little girl on top of that, McKinley, who is 15 months old. And life is chaotic, but all good all at the same time. So we have lots of fun.
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So first of all, this is kind of also a broad question, kind of a heavy question, but I'm sure someone would like to hear, I know I want to hear, what kind of prayers do you pray over your children?
Well, honestly, I mean, that is one of those questions that, for me, when you think about praying for your kid, it's like, well, I need to pray all the things, and because my child, I love them more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
I need to cover them in all the areas and cover them in, every aspect. And it was genuinely like a stress for me. Like, even though I was honored to be able to have these kids to pray for, it was like, well, wait, what do I pray
Yeah.
for you? And, so I remember, I think it actually was your mom, she told me to pray scriptures over them. And that was something that, and so from time to time, that's what I'll do. And then just, I have a book that I enjoy reading, read it over and over again, but it's Power of a Praying Parent. And that just kind of, gives you a guided tour of what to pray and how to pray, specifics without being too overwhelming, and for our kids in particular, with them being from a blended family, and I hate to use the term, but it's part of their story, a broken home. I pray for them not to be affected, the effects that their stories will have on them, that they'll use it for a positive, that they won't view it as a negative, that they will love and serve God and use all parts of their story for His glory, and lots of other things, but for the most part, that's
Yeah, absolutely. And going off of that, talking about a mother's prayer and all of the children that you have in your home, being a blended family, how do you think that your job, what do you think is your job as a mother when it comes to
all the things? Yeah. The job, my thing, if you ask my kids what my number one job is, they will say to protect them, and that covers a lot of things. Sometimes that means that I'm not their most favorite person in the world. Sometimes it's, well, why can't we play this game, or why can't we do that? And it's like, well, because it's not the best thing for you, or it's real conversations that you don't want to have with your small children, or but it's real life, and it's teaching them and guiding them and showing them that hey, this is life, and it's preparing them, and it's not always all fun and games, but it's messy sometimes, and I'm not always the favorite, but that's okay. And I think that's for my sake. It's hard sometimes, but it's worth it, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And preparing them is one of the biggest things too is, that the world is not always lovely, as we can see from day to day. You turn on the
Absolutely.
news and you see that it's like to prepare and protect. You protect for their innocence the best that you can, but also prepare them that, hey, this is what the real world's like. So
Absolutely. And I'm sure they're better for it,
I hope so.
Kind of in the same vein, what do you think is a mother's responsibility? Kind of going above and beyond the job, what do you think is a mother's responsibility?
One thing comes to mind specifically and like you said, with the job and the responsibility, it kind of goes hand in hand to me, but I do feel like there is more of a weight with the responsibility versus the job. With a job, it's like you clock in and out, and you feel, of course, with being a mom, that's not, you don't. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
But with the responsibilities, for me, I feel like that is where more of the spiritual side of things come in. That's not just what I'm supposed to do, but it's what I'm called to do. And there was not, it was not too long ago, Pastor actually, there was a Wednesday night session that he was doing, and he was talking about discipleship. And he was going around the room asking people for examples, and I was I say luckily because I did not want to get called on, because I sat there and I was like, what do I do? I don't have these moments that everybody else is having. I'm just in my house all the time, and I don't have these opportunities. And I felt so small and insignificant, and I was having a pity party. Let's just, call it what it is. And I was holding McKinley at the time, actually, and she was fussy, and I'm like, this is all I do.
Yeah.
And it was a few days later, I was still kind of like, it just stuck with me. And I'm like, I don't, it's not that I don't want to, but I don't have these opportunities. And it was God ever so graciously, I was luckily heard, but it was, you're planting seeds. You are, you're doing my work, and, you're not maybe creating all these disciples outside your home, but what you're doing is you're creating my disciples inside the walls of your house. And it was like, and I saw all the faces of my kids, and I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden it was just like, oh, okay, like, I get it. Like, that's my responsibility, is to guide them and, show them that life is hard, but if you trust in God and, you trust everything that He always has a plan of some sort, it's all going to work out, that, to teach them that life is, you just have to get up and keep pushing, keep going along, and, hopefully teach them to be decent human beings, show them that, mommy doesn't always get it right. I, mess up a lot, and I have to ask for forgiveness just like they do. They see me overwhelmed, and but I think that's an important part of it too, is to show them that, hey, it's real, and I am not perfect, and I will never pretend to be, but let's figure this out together. So I would say that a broad spectrum, but that would be my biggest responsibility. So
hearing you talk about that in the form of discipleship reminds me of that verse that says, train up a child in the way that they should go.
Yeah.
It's almost like the most basic and like primary form of discipleship.
Yeah.
And like almost not the most important, but it starts there in the home.
Right.
That's awesome. What about, it kind of goes along in the same vein as a mother's prayer, but it's a little bit different. When you think about a mother's blessing, how would you like to bless your children, or what kind of blessings do you even pray over them?
I think that for me, with us having the life that we have, for them to have joy, that to know that no matter what happens in life, that you find the joy in a situation, that to bless them with peace, that, when a storm comes, when something is not always rainbows and sunshines, and, it's to know that, hey, everything's going to be okay. You're strong enough for this, that, and despite anything that's raging around them, they have peace in the middle of that. That's something that as I grow, I find more value gets placed on peace and joy and those things that can kind of be taken from you in certain situations, and you realize the real value of those things. So I think that would be the things that I would bless them with, the stuff that, I want to cling to myself. So.
And no pressure. But I have a question for you.
Okay.
And mothers watching at home, whether you're on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, give us a comment under this video as a response to this question. So what would you say is your greatest joy as a mother?
My greatest joy, I guess, would be seeing the differences in my kids, watching them grow and figure out life. Sometimes there's ups and downs to it, and there's some stages that I'm like, can we fast forward through this one just a little bit? But I would say to just watch them become their own person, and then the moments where they just kind of seem to get it. Those, when you're planting seeds and you're trying to teach them right from wrong, and you're trying to show them this way versus that way, and this is how we do this, and this is not how we do it. And you feel like you are the bad guy, and you're, not doing any good job, and you're like, they're not getting it. And then for them to have this moment where you see a light bulb come on, or they say something back to you, and you're like, oh, you are getting something. And it's like this sigh of relief that, okay, I just feel like things go in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. So I think watching them, get it from time to time that's a big joy too.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned your daughter McKinley being the newest addition to the family.
She is.
In that blended family, how has she changed things, and how has that looked for your family?
For us, McKinley she's but she is wild and lots of fun. And for us, she's just I call her our perfect blend, not because she's better than any of the other kids, but just because she's a little bit of all of us. And she just I guess, ties us all together. We were all packaged together, and when we said I do, it was, the boys refer to it as our wedding. But McKinley is just the bow that ties it and puts it all together. Like, it's just, and they take such pride, even the boys, that just is like, oh, well, she's ours, she belongs to us, and they take such pride in that. And so we're all just smitten. So she keeps us entertained, to say the least.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, so in talking about the joys of motherhood and everything that we've talked about tonight, mother's blessing, mother's prayer, the jobs and responsibilities of being a mother, how has that looked being in a blended family for you?
It's a little different. Being blended is, it's a blessing, but I would be totally lying if I said that it was not challenging. 5 years into it, and we are still figuring it out. We have growing pains, and there's hurdles that we have to jump over, and it has been figuring out that each kid is different, that just because we said I do it didn't instantly make us a family, and that, I know that probably doesn't sound the best, but you're not instantly blended. Right. And I think it was focused on the family or something along those lines. They had a saying that they talk about, and it was very helpful to me because I am a fixer. I have no problem opening up my arms and my heart and saying, I love these kids. These are my kids. And I don't see it any differently, but those kids, each kid may need something different from me. And I just want everything to instantly be what it's supposed to be. And they said, in a blended family, the most important thing to figure out is that it's not a microwave. And it's like, really, you're using cooking terms, but it's a crock pot. And that is something that, to be so short and sweet has helped a ton, because it's figuring out that this situation is going to be different from this. This kid needs this right now, whereas this kid needs this. This one doesn't feel this way towards me yet, but this one does. Yeah. And figuring all that out and learning how to balance all the things and all the schedules, and it's challenging, but worth it. And 5 years later, we're, still hanging in there. We're still figuring it out, and, it gets easier and easier every year. And you watch. Family vacations are the things that really test it. Our first family vacation, Josh and I looked at each other and we were like, what have we done? We have spent all this money to torture ourselves. And then 2 years, 3 years, and it's like, oh, we actually enjoyed ourselves this time. And I know that sometimes in just your normal everyday families, that's kind of how parents feel anyways, because your kids fight and whatever. But you enjoy watching the process, and you cry a lot and you read a lot, and you pray a ton. But all in all, it's good, and I am glad that I got the opportunity to love extra kids that I didn't give birth to, but they grew in my heart. And our home is mixed, and but it's ours, and we're happy to have it. So.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for sitting down with me and having this conversation. All you mothers out there, if you feel comfortable sharing with us in the comments section any of your answers to these questions, what do you feel is a mother's job or responsibility? How do you pray over your children? And maybe as mothers start to look at the comments, then you guys can just kind of share with each other what that looks like. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another mother. And in between that time, we'll be posting services. We'll be having Bible studies online. You're welcome to check us out on the Facebook page, or check us out online at www.cachattanooga.org. Thank you, guys.